As I continue working through the book of Job, in this video, we are looking at Leviathan. We have worked our way through the first three chapters of Job, doing grammar with application or with commentary. We have done chapter 28 phrase by phrase, and now we are in in the Hebrew, chapter 40, verse 25 to the end. In the AV, the English translation, and the RV, we would be beginning chapter 41. So I would like to read the Hebrew and look at the grammar pretty much word by word. So we begin in verse 25. Timshok Leviathan bechaka uvehevel tashkia leshono. That is, God is still asking Job questions. Can you draw out Leviathan with a hook? That would be like with a fish hook. Are you able to draw out Leviathan? And Leviathan, I'm understanding to be the crocodile. We've looked at the hippopotamus. At least most feel that this is what we're looking at here. So what he's really saying, are you able to draw out the crocodile, Leviathan, bechaka, with and haka actually means like a hook. Are you able, it would be a hook that would be fastened to the jaw, like a fish hook. Are you able to take a fish hook and draw out Leviathan? Notice Timshok here is from Mashak, to draw out. We're looking at a cow imperfect, second masculine singular from Mashak. And we're still having the hey prefix understood, the interrogative question being asked Job. So can you draw out Leviathan with like a fish hook? Uvehevel tashkia leshono, or can you press down his tongue with a cord? Notice here, tashkia means to press down, and the way I'm understanding it here. So, are you able to press down with a cord the tongue of the crocodile? Like with a cord, can you hold his tongue down? I think that's the thought that we're seeing here in this particular phrase. So let's go on then. By the way, technically, hashkia means to make, to sink. And I'm rendering it again like to press down. I would agree with the Somsino translation here. Are you able to cause to press down? And tashkia is a hifil imperfect, second masculine singular from shaka. We have the thematic AI vowel pattern giving it away as a hifil. And so the thought here in this verse, since no one tries to provoke Leviathan, let me just go back to defining Leviathan. Leviathan means literally something like a twisted animal. And like I've said, I'm taking it to refer to the crocodile. God sarcastically then asked Job, if he can go fishing for the crocodile as he would for regular fish, which draw the bait into their mouths. Can you do that, Job? Is really what the text is asking. Rather ironic at this point. Then we go to the next verse, verse 26. Hatasim agmon be'apo uvechocha tikov lechayo. That is, can you place a ring in his nose? Or are you able to, with a hook, can you bore his jaw? And notice here, ha tasim, from the middle weak verb sim. Again, we have a cow imperfect, second masculine singular. Are you able to place a agmon, a ring in his nose? Or with a hook, bechocha tikov lechayo. Are you able to pierce through his jaw? Notice tikov is from the root nakav. It's a pay noon verb, where the noon by progressive assimilation has gone into the kov. And so are you able to bore through his jaw with a hook? And again, there's irony here. This was the way that wild beasts were led about after their capture. We see this, for example, in Isaiah 37:29 and Ezekiel 29, verse 4. And the idea of piercing here, fish are usually fastened by placing a wire or rope in their mouths and out the gills. In this way, they can be kept alive in the water without their swimming away. So I think the thought here would be, can you so string the crocodile on a line? Job is being asked. Then we move on to the next verse, verse 27. Hayarbe alecha tachanunim im yedaber elecha rakot. That is, will he, that is the crocodile, make unto you many, or cause to be many supplications unto you? Or will he speak unto you soft words? Probably rakot is understood as an adjective here, soft words. Again, will he multiply many supplications unto you? Again, the hey interrogative, followed by yarbe from rabbah, a hiphil imperfect, third masculine singular. So will he make many supplications unto you? Or will he speak, yedaber, unto you rakot, soft words? Yedaber is from dabar, to speak. It's a piel here, a piel imperfect, third person masculine singular from dabar. So will he speak to you and give you supplications or soft words? Again, the irony here, the thought here would be the crocodile again is not going to be able to be tamed, and he will not respond to kind words of, let's say, his captor. This seems to be the thought. In other words, he's not going to sit and listen to you, possibly like a dog might do. This won't happen. And so then we go to the next verse, verse 28. Hayakrot berit imak tikachenu le'eved olam. That is, will he make or cut a covenant with you, that you should take him forever for a servant. Again, that interrogative hey, followed by yikrot, the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from karat. And karat berit is a way in the Hebrew Bible we talk about cutting a covenant or making a covenant. Probably one of the classic examples would be in Bereshit, Genesis 15, where animals were cut and God moved through the pieces. So it's the idea of making a covenant. So will he make a covenant with you that you should take him for a servant forever? Notice tikkachenu is from lakach, to take. Again, it's a cow imperfect, second masculine singular from lakach. And here we have the lamed has gone into the kof, historically by progressive assimilation. So tilkachenu became tikkachenu with the doubling of the kof. And notice the N here I'm taking to be like a hinge, and it would be like tikkachenhu, that is, he will take him. And notice the who here, the hey of the who, the pronominal suffix, by reverse assimilation has gone back into the noon, causing the doubling of the noon. So basically, what Job is being asked here in this particular verse, can the crocodile be tamed so that he becomes useful to man? He becomes like your servant, Job. I think that's the thought here, and make a covenant with you in that sense. And then as he goes on to verse 29, notice, ha tesachek bo kat sipur, v'tiksherenu lenaharutecha. That is, will you play with him as a bird? Or will you bind him for your maidens? Notice here, again, we continue to have that interrogative, hey. Tesachek is from sachak, to laugh or to play. Here we have a PL imperfect, second masculine singular from sachak. Notice the vowel pattern here is shava pathak, indicative of the PL imperfect stem. So will he play with you as with a bird, as you play with a bird, for example? Or will you bind him for your maidens? Tik sherenu, lenaharutecha. This is from kashar, to bind. It's a cow imperfect, second masculine singular again, from kashar, followed by the pronominal suffix in the hu, where the hey by reverse assimilation has gone back into the noon here. And I'm seeing the in sort of like a hinge to take us to the pronominal suffix hu. Will you bind him for your maidens so that they can treat him like a plaything? And again, notice the irony here. Will Job be able, the thought I believe is to make a pet of the crocodile as one makes a bird his pet and be able to play with him? That's, I believe, the irony and the thought that is going on here. Then we come to verse 30 in the Hebrew. If you're following the AV, it would be verse 6, I believe. So, Yikru alav chabarim yechatsuhu ben kena'anim. That is, will you, well, we could say, will the associates, I noticed the Sunsino translates this bands of fishermen, ha-habarim. It's a plural, meaning like associates. And in the context here, we're probably talking about traders, Phoenician traders. But so will you bind, will you bind him with the associates, bind upon him? And notice Yekru here is from kara, the root here. And as we look at this, notice kara means to get by trade or to make trade of. And so the thought seems to be, will you, Job, make trade like with the associates, like the other, can I say, merchants are doing? So will you bind him, or make trade would be a way to translate it. Will you make trade over him? Let me render it this way. Will the associates make trade over him? The bands of fishermen is the way it's translated in the Sunsino, habarim, from habar. It literally means a partner or associate, and it's plural. So will the associates bind upon him, or get him, I should render this, get him by trade, or make trade of him? Maybe it would be a better way to translate it. A cow imperfect, third masculine plural from kara, and then yechatsuhu bein kena'anim. That is, will they part him or divide him in half between the kena'anim? The kena'anim would refer to the traders or the merchants. So will they divide him in half and have like a banquet with him? It's interesting, in the Jewish Sunsino commentary on page 214 by Reichart, it reads, in later Jewish folklore, the banquet on the flesh of Leviathan is the feast in store for the righteous in the hereafter. Here the image is that of a company of fishermen trafficking with the merchants. And I think that has captured the thought here. And the Ananim would be the traders. Actually, from we get Canaanite, Canaanim would simply be the Phoenician traders, possibly is the imagery here. Will they be able to have a banquet with him, so to speak, and trade with him, cut him in half, as it were, and have like a banquet? It is interesting. This probably, like we say, refers to the Canaanite merchants who had an excellent trading business in the ancient Middle East. Could fishermen then trade Leviathan, to Canaanite merchants as they do fish? That seems to be the best I can do to understand what's being said here. And then we go on to the next verse, verse 31. Ha temale vesukot oro u vetsiltal dagim rosho. Can you fill with, we could render this something like with sharp iron spears, his skin. So can you fill his skin with like barbed iron spears? Or u vetsiltal dagim rosho. Who are you able to take his head with spears of fish, the kind of spears that you use for fish. Can you do that? Is the question here. And notice Timale is a PL imperfect, second masculine singular from Malay. So are you able to fill with spears his skin, with iron, sort of like even iron spears, barbed iron spears, or his head with spears? And so the question that we're looking at here is simply, how can you do that? The crocodile's iron skin rebuffs harpoons or spears seeking to kill the crocodile. And I think that's the imagery going on here. And then he becomes even more ironic or sarcastic. Sim Allah kapecha zechor milchama al tosef. That is, lay upon him your hand and think or remember the battle. You will not do it anymore or again. In other words, you don't dare to lay your hand upon him. And so place, here we have an imperative from Sim. So cow imperative masculine singular. Place upon him your hand and think upon the milchama. Zachor, remember, we could render this. Another imperative. Remember the milchama, remember the battle. You will not do it anymore. In other words, that would be the last time. Al tosif. Tosif, by the way, is from the root vasav. It was a pei vav root. And here it's a hifil imperfect, second masculine singular from yasaf, historically vasaf. What happens here in this hifil, it would have been tau saf becoming to saf, the AW coming together into a holem vav. So let me just stop there. I want to work through the chapter 41 as well eventually. Take my time, work through it. So what we're looking at here is Leviathan, which probably is the crocodile. And Job is being ironically asked, can you really tame this creature that God has made? And I think the whole thought is, if you can't do that, how dare you confront me, God is saying. And how can you approach me? And this goes on then into the next chapter in the Hebrew scriptures. So I'm going to stop there. I'm hoping this will help someone. I'm enjoying keeping my mind active, working through Job, which is a very difficult text to me in Hebrew. Very different than Bereshit or Genesis. But again, I hope it's helpful.